Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since we spoke about VCT, so for this week's video I'm going to be bringing you an interview with Bambino, KOI's analyst, and how his preparation has been going for the inaugural season of the franchising league coming up later this month. Firstly, Bambino, welcome to the video. If you could just give us a quick introduction of yourself and what your role is at KOI.
Sure. So I'm Tyler, or Bambino, and I'm the assistant coach and analyst for KOI Valorant.
Very nice. So for franchising, you're now going to be involved in VCT EMEA at the end of the month. How were you first contacted about getting into this role? Of course, you were at OG London United before, and even OG before that. How did this opportunity come about for you?
Yeah, so it was post like franchising announcements, and we knew Oglu weren't going to make franchise, and so it was like it was just an application process, like a lot of these jobs. I messaged Baba, and I was just like, hey man, like I'd love to work for you, you know, like and he sent me back like a bunch of trials basically I had to do, and I was told that there was quite a lot of analysts trialing at the time, and it was just like anti-strats, like a lot of anti-strat. We had to anti-strat guild who he was with, we had to anti-strat some other teams with like very limited time frames. I then got called back again to do like a second wave of trials when they told me it was down to like a final 2. So I had to do even more trials, and then finally I got pulled into a call with Barbar and Gokid, and they were like, yeah, you got the job. And I was over the moon. I couldn't believe it, because I didn't think with OG not making franchising, I didn't think there'd be a space for me. So I was just over the moon. I was so excited when they got me in that call.
I guess it's great to see as well that the esports dream is alive and kicking for a lot of people as well, and being able to sort of make it through that process, and like you said, going through the sort of hoops that they have analysts jump through. I've heard quite a few of them. You know, you need to do all of these little prep bits, and it's always limited time frame, because that's exactly how it works sort of in the real world when you have to anti-strat these teams. So then,
especially the second one, it was a space of a few hours. They said you have 3 hours to anti-strat a team, and so that was like an all systems go, full just focus. Like I don't think I've ever done as much work in that little time as I did when I did that anti-strat. So yeah. They're definitely intense, but you know, worth it in the end, I guess.
Oh, of course, definitely worth it. And I mean, then looking at the team and sort of moving into that environment, once you knew that you had that place, it was one of the final rosters to sort of be fully announced. You had that core at the start that got shown up, but then Startso only came in towards January, and yourself by February. So what would the preparation then have looked like coming into lock-in, for example, not having spent as much time with the team, I suppose?
Yeah, so we definitely didn't have as much time to prepare for Brazil as we would have liked, because there was like I say, Starkster had some contract situations, so we couldn't actually practice with him until the start of January, where other teams were practicing months beforehand. So we had, I think it was 4 weeks of practice before Brazil, to get like a really solid map pool. So it was just intense, to be honest with you. Like we just worked a lot. It was really hard. And the good thing about this team is we have a lot of hard workers that really want to put in the time, and we also have a fantastic like coaching staff. And I think when you're a 3-man staff, that really enables you to kind of spread wider, and you can get a lot more done than 2 or even like 1-man staffs that exist in some of the franchise teams. So we just had to pull really tight, and just really work hard. We also had a boot camp for a week before we flew to Brazil, and we were able to get a lot done in that short space, because things move so much easier when you're at a boot camp and you can have these conversations face to face with people. So yeah, the preparation wasn't as much or as good as we would have liked, but we made the best of the time we had, and I think by the end we were decently well prepared by the time we landed in Brazil.
My next question was going to be, how much time did you have with the players, and what were your first impressions? But you know, you already said hardworking team. You had about 4 weeks with them. Is there anything else that sort of immediately stood out to you from working with this new group?
I mean, it was interesting to me because so when I first started Valorant coaching at like the university level in the UK, like that was at the time of like Champions and Masters 3 Champions 1, where Shados and Starkso, you know, they were playing at the champion stage. Obviously I'd worked in tier 1 with Oglu before that, but like I'd never worked with a world champion like Starkso or Shados, and so definitely those first couple of days were weird, because it was like, oh, a year ago I thought you were the best player in the world, and now I'm now I'm telling you off for over peaking, you know. So there was definitely like a little bit of that, but you get used to it very quickly, and you kind of, you know, they're just people at the end of the day, and yeah. But my reaction at first was definitely a little starstruck, but then you know you just have to focus on the job, and you get used to them, I think.
Yeah, I just want to pull apart on two different ideas there. I'll touch on the UK uni bit in a sec, but the fact that you have worked with these players that you would consider champions now, then, is there anything that you would recognise from the way that they not only approach the game, play the game, that sort of separates them from players who maybe don't have that kind of experience, or, you know, haven't, you know, achieved the same kind of accolades that they have so far?
I mean, for me, it's like a lot about like work ethic and stuff. Like, I'll take Shados as an example. That guy's like amazing to work with. Like, he'll always message you like, "Hey, let's mod review. I think I can do better here." Or like you say to him, "Hey, we want you to play a new role or a new agent on this map." He'll go, "Yeah, okay, I'll go learn it." And he'll show up to practice the next day with lineups with, and I think that's it. I think a lot of players, there's a lot of talented players. There's a lot of people that can shoot heads, but there's not a lot of people that can really dedicate themselves to the game and really be willing to grind and work hard. And I think that's what separates the champions.
Yeah, and obviously your own personal grind and getting through would have started with UK Uni. I saw that on the sort of list of servers that we share in common, one of them being UK Uni Valorant. I remember that kicking off back in 2020. How would you summarize your experience with the whole university scene?
I loved it. So it was interesting because I started during COVID, and it was like we had a I went to the University of Liverpool, and we had an esports like society. Valorant was new, and so there were 6 people signed up for the Valorant team. I was one of them, and we were all plats and diamonds at the time, and I was the lowest. I was like plat 1. So I just said, "Listen, guys, I'll just coach. COVID will be over in 3 weeks. We'll be fine." And COVID wasn't over in 3 weeks, as we found out later. But I fell in love with coaching the game, and like I'd never done anything like it before. But like immediately, I'm talking, you know, this was UK university level, but I was anti-stratting, I was VOD reviewing, we were scrimming 3 nights a week, and I was running a tight ship, and and I just fell in love with it, and it was from there that I then realised that this is what I wanted to do. And so I then went on to amateur teams and eventually ended up at OG, and then you know the rest. But yeah, so I did it because COVID happened. I couldn't play sports anymore, and I loved it. And like you say, like there's a lot of people come out of that UK Valorant, UK uni scene. I mean, Gorilla, the Vitality Analyst, yourself, Yinsu was a host, right? So there's a lot of people come out of there, and I think that speaks quite well for the scene as a whole, and also for anyone like in that scene now, like players, coaches, and stuff. Like, you know, there's definite paths up, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it's nice to see that path to progression as well. And I guess you could probably make a point to say that because we were part of that sort of early crop of the scene, the fact that there has been some success there probably also leans into that it's like getting on the ship early and really sort of being interested in getting involved with the game. And I think that says a lot about you as a coach as well, that was something that you wanted to sort of pick up almost straight away and get into. But moving away from the UK uni scene all the way, you know, across the sea towards Brazil, then lock-in, as you said, you didn't perhaps get as much preparation for it as you would have liked. How was that experience as a whole?
It was great. Like I'd never been to an international LAN or anything like that before, so like the experience of being able to like travel with my players, the hotel was super nice. This amazing view, and all of the people we met at Riot, like the Riot staff that were looking after us and stuff, were fantastic to work with as well. They made our job very easy, and so it was really cool. Like we had these practice rooms in this big like sports hall. And, you know, there was just all the teams all in one place. And it was funny, like, you'd go outside after each, like, hour scrim block, and you'd just see 10 teams all sat there discussing the scrims and stuff. And it was, so yeah, it was honestly a really, really cool experience, and one I won't be forgetting for sure.
So it's like one of those sort of school sports fairs that you have when all the different schools in the neighborhood around, you know them sort of by face or whatever, you maybe mates with one of them, and then you've got the whole 32 teams there, which is just ridiculous. So I mean, you've already sort of spoke about it a little bit. Obviously the result against NRG was unfortunate, but I mean, being one of the top 4 teams in the event in the end, you probably can't complain about it too much. Did you have a sort of a favorite moment from the whole time being out there, anything that you think is really worth talking about?
One thing I will say
Mm.
is Brazilian food was fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, we our one of the content guys of our organization, Alex, is from Sao Paulo. He grew
Mm.
up in Brazil, and so he was showing us all like the best like Brazilian food, and like they have these like amazing steaks and stuff. So yeah, I like the highlight of that event for me outside of the game was definitely food because
Nice.
there was Brazilian food's fantastic.
Mm. Then coming into VCT EMEA back on sort of home turf, I suppose, or I imagine you'll probably be. Are you going to be joining out in Berlin with the rest of the team then?
Yep,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
fly this weekend.
Nice, nice. You looking forward to that?
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I've been to Berlin a couple of times, and it's a really, really like nice city.
Mm.
So I'm excited. And like I said previously, just being able to spend time with your team
Yeah.
and like bond, and you can just make so much more progress. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Then, speaking of progress, sort of preparation, these kinds of things, obviously, that fits into what your role is within the team. For VCT MEA, I mean, you wouldn't have had too much information about the teams coming into lock-in. This one now, of course, with the break in between the two major events, and I guess, again, limited information on these teams that you're able to pull apart, and the landscapes could have, shifted in that time. How is it exactly that you look to prepare for this new season? What sort of factors are you able to control?
Um, in terms of like opponent preparation, it's quite hard
Mm.
because like you said, there's only been one tournament. So, but we just have to do what we can. Watch the VODs, study the data. Um, and like in terms of our own preparation, it's very similar. It's just, we practice as much as we can, we get as much theory as we can in. And I think especially for the early games, it's a lot of just focusing on ourselves and making sure we're as strong as we can be fundamentally, making sure that we are, our strats are good, that our calling's good. And then we know like on our best day, we could beat anyone.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's sort of a common theme from people that I've spoken to in coaching staff, that you have to have that complete and utter belief in your team, and that anyone is capable of beating anyone. And I think that is sort of the beauty of it as well. Then coming into building those different strats and protocols and whatnot within the team already has a little bit of a core, right? From the coach of Barbar with Coldamenta and Trex both coming from Guild, Coldamenta then to Star, so you have a little bit of overlap from Ascend there as well. This now being a new roster as a whole, however, how is it that you come up with these sort of general defaults, strats, protocols, etc., etc.? How does that begin to spindle? How do we unravel that?
Sure. So without giving too much away,
Yeah.
it comes from all of us basically. So Baba, Gokid, myself, and Coldamenta, they're the four that are kind of involved most in the strats. Myself actually a little bit less, but like
Yeah.
Gokid and Baba are both brilliant strategically. Both fantastic strategic minds, and Calder is as well. So it's kind of a little bit of a mixed match. Like people would bring different things depending on their strengths and what their mind works better with. So someone might go, "Oh, I really like attack side on this map. I'll bring some strats for this." Or someone else might go, "Okay, I like ultimate rounds or eco rounds here. Let me handle this." So in response to like the core stuff, like we don't really take a lot from Guild. Guild as a team kind of worked in a little bit of a different way, and so yeah, it's all basically all new stuff, and it just comes from everyone. It's quite a collaborative process. It's not just one person.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's sort of that division of labor that you were speaking about as well earlier, how it's easier to get more done with more coaches. And then also
Exactly.
you have more ideas to then tap into when it comes to that process. So the first game that you have in VCT, of course, is NAVI. So from one world champ to another, are you more excited, nervous? How are you feeling then coming into that first game?
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big game, right? Everyone knows Navi are good, and everyone knew Navi was going to be good as soon as you saw their roster. But like, those are the games that like you really, really want to win, because everybody knows how good Navi is. So if you can go and beat Navi, everyone will then know how good you are, and you can't put an asterisk next to your win or anything like that. So I'm just excited because, like I said previously, this team at its peak, I know that we can beat Navi. So I'm excited, and like it will be the first game. It will be our first game, in the arena in Berlin, in front of the fans and stuff like that. So I think there's obviously a little bit of nerves. Like there's always nerves going into officials,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think it's more excitement for me, and just I just really am ready to go. That's how I feel.
Speaking of the Koi fans as well, then of course we know them to be incredibly passionate. What's your experience with them been so far? They've welcomed you with
Yeah.
open arms.
Oh yeah, totally. They've been amazing, to be honest. Like every now and then I'll just tweet something in terrible Spanish and they'll love it. I mean, they were honestly the Koi fans have been fantastic. Like as a team, we really really felt their support during Brazil and like the weeks leading up to it. And like I know all the guys on the team get nice messages. Oh hey, we're supporting you. We'll stick with you through thick and thin. They're not like I don't think anyone has had a bad experience with a Koi fan yet. But yeah, we really really feel that support and that love, and it makes you want to win. Like I want to win for that community, and to see Ibai's Twitch chat go insane when we win, that. And so yeah, we really really feel that, and they've been amazing.
Yeah, I could tell. Definitely very passionate. I was lucky enough to cast home ground, and when they were not able to win against Big, he certainly seemed very frustrated. So hopefully you can bring some more of the good times back to
Fingers crossed,
the
yeah.
Ibai faithful. But then of course, speaking about that NAVI game, and of course you have to play every single team once, going through it. The franchise system being a bit different, sort of taking it one game at a time. What are your aims for this first season then? Is it just sort of getting that master spot, aiming straight for the top and just sort of taking each game as it comes? Because, I mean, if you're capable of beating Navi, I think it's fair to say that you probably think you're capable of beating literally every other team in the league.
Yeah, like my aims personally, like I I want to get to Tokyo. I
Hmm.
want to get to champs and masters. That's like my aim. But at the same time, we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, and we know that you can't be focused on 6 weeks ahead. You can only look at your next game
Yeah.
and your next game. So of course, like our goal is to qualify, and our goal is to win everything we can. But in terms of like keeping ourselves grounded, it's a week by week focus, and we're just gonna focus on the next opponent and the next game, regardless of our results. Every game you're 0-0, and you have to just win the next one. So that's kind of how I'm viewing it right now.
Yeah, the classic sort of Sunday league approach, I guess you could say,
Exactly. Yeah.
to
Exactly.
every single game.
Have a
Before
nil
I
down at the half. 0-0, boys.
yeah,
0-0.
yeah. First challenge, first in, of course. But yeah, so I didn't really touch on this. It's not in the questions list, but I thought I'd bring it up as well. Of course, your brother is also a coach for global esports. What's that
Yeah.
relationship like? Because I think people probably find that fairly interesting. How did that come about as you both getting into coaching at the same time? Was it pure coincidence, or was there sort of some prior discussion that took place?
Yeah, it's really cool, to be honest. So especially because we're identical twins, right? So
Yeah.
you get compared a lot anyway, being identical twins. But it was great for me, especially like when we both first started and we were working around kind of the amateur UK circuit together, because we were really able to help each other, and like we learned twice as fast as other coaches and other analysts,
Mm-hmm.
because every time I wanted to speak about a comp, a strat, or something, I had someone to bounce off, and he had the same.
Hmm.
And how it came about is, so I was coaching first. He never coached in like the university level or anything. It was when I moved to like the UK amateur circuit. He basically said, "Well, if you could do it, I can do it," and so he dived in there as well. And so yeah, and we both grew together, and we really just tried to push each other. And there's nothing but love, to be fair. Like we both come quite a long way. Although I
Yeah.
will say I would love to play global esports. I think that'd be
Yeah.
a fantastic game. I hope at some point as one of the masters or something that can happen, because right now we're 1-0. Our teams have only played each other once and won one,
Okay.
so I'd like to make it 2-0. Just park the bus,
Just a cheeky little had to dip that one in there. So sort of slight leak that there had been a scrim win at some point. But yeah, I guess do you hear too much about what's going on the other side of the world from him too much about how the team is doing?
Yeah, I hear a little bit. We speak about our teams, obviously within reason. Like we don't
Yeah.
share everything,
Yeah.
obviously, but like he'll tell me about like kind of the APAC scene as a whole, and we'll discuss like the metas and things like that,
Yeah.
because it's very interesting. Like the meta that like the Asian teams are practicing with is very different to what it looks like in Europe. And I've also heard that that's very different to what it looks like in NA. And we saw that a little bit at lock in with like the loud Harbour Viper stuff. Like EU teams weren't running that. And there's also like a lot of double duelist and things like that that isn't as popular in Europe. So we definitely have a lot of conversations about like the meta and comps, and we also like we'll theory craft like the new agent together, for example, and we'll be like, okay, so how can this work and what comps can that fit into? And yeah, I think that has always been really really helpful for me. I think, to be honest.
And before we get into those general questions about the meta and whatnot, final question there. Have you ever been tempted to just like go into one of their scrims and just pretend that you were him?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
I wish I could just put on his headset. Hello, India, GE fighting, and and see what they're doing. But unfortunately, I don't think we sound too similar. I think we get rumbled, to be honest with you. I imagine.
Okay.
Also, I know their other assistant coach, Spin. I've met him a couple of times. I think he'd rumble me. But maybe he could get away with doing it to my team. They don't know what he sounds like, so there's a chance. Maybe we'll have to see. You'll never know. Watch out, Baba.
Look, yeah, keep them peeled. Keep them peeled. It still could always happen. But then going on that point that you know sort of barely touched on there as well about Harbour Viper, do you think that the flexibility of this new comp sort of coming to the forefront of the meta? I guess it depends on what region you're looking at as well. That's trying to play it more than others. Does that flexibility then make your job harder as an analyst when you're looking to sort of anti-strat certain things, especially in the late round where Harbour can be so impactful?
Yeah, I think it can do for sure. Especially because I think a lot of these teams that run the Harbour Viper, they might run a bit of a default here and there, but a lot of it's quite loose. It's not like Prime Fnatic or Prime FPX where it's like super structured executes and you know this dart means this and you know this drone means this. I think it is a bit looser, which can be difficult. But oftentimes when you're dealing with these like loose teams or these loose competitions, you have to just look a bit more into like the players and how they play. And okay, like every player has tendencies that you know, places they'll like to peak and util that they'll like to use. So I think you just have to kind of approach it differently. It's definitely more difficult, and I think the Harbour Viper Sky stuff is new. So there's not a lot of like, let's say you're looking at an Ascent game, right? And you're looking at like the most standard like Jet KO Sova comp, right? Everyone tends to play that the same way.
Yeah.
So you can get quite a good feel for teams if they're playing into that kind of standard meta alignment and stuff. But because this stuff's quite new, and I do expect teams to use it based on loud success in Brazil, it's a bit different because there's no like set obvious patterns to it yet. But I guess that's just one of the challenges of the job. You know, you have to adapt in the way that these compositions adapt and find ways and find things you can exploit at the end of the day. So to be honest, it's a challenge I'm quite looking forward to.
And it's sort of as well then, I suppose, similar to just what information you have about these teams in total, the amount of maximum data that you're able to work with, because we've only really seen it played in T1 for one event at this point in time. So it's just sort of getting the learning curve and as to how teams actually want to implement it to its fullest extent, because while Loud are incredibly good at it and probably have played it about as efficiently as you can, that's one team in one region and perhaps not how it then looks in VCT EMEA in coming weeks.
Exactly. And I think it's a comp that doesn't work for every team. You need a good Sky player, you need a good Harbour player.
Yeah.
And so while I do expect some teams to adopt it because it was so successful, I don't think every team should, because it will work for some teams and it won't work for others. And I think that's just down to the coaches needing to know their players and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So then, speaking of utility and different sort of pieces that can become involved and changes to the meta, we have now seen Gekko. What are your initial thoughts on the new agent, how some of his kit could perhaps affect the current meta, where that slots in, or perhaps how it could offset other current team compositions to sort of respond to anyone trying to use it, I guess?
Yeah, so I think Gekko is definitely really cool, and I think he has his place on a few maps. I don't think he'll work on every map, just due to some of the limitations of his kit, but I think definitely a few maps you'll be able to get away with Gekko. In terms of how I think he'll be used, though, like I think the wingman being able to plant and defuse is pretty cool. But I think getting your wingman to plant is going to be so dangerous, especially on certain maps. Like, let's use Icebox as an example, right?
Yeah.
If you send him to plant and the opponents have any kind of mollies, sharp darts, or anything like that, your wingman's just dead, and now your spike's in no man's land. So I don't think that'll be as common, but like, let's say you're retaking, you get the wingman on the spike as soon as he can, and he gets half. That's huge. So I think teams will use that. I think the ult is super good as well. Like the fact that you can pick it up and use it again.
Yeah.
So you can, let's use Icebox as an example again. You could take all of B long with it. Wait a second, pick it up. Now you can take yellow. Congratulations, you've taken the B side. So I think he's cool, and I think he'll have his place. But I don't think he's as strong as a lot of people say. I think there's a bit of overreactions to him because you can shoot all of his kit. You can shoot his flash, you can shoot wingman, you can shoot his ult even. So I think teams will get good at countering it eventually, and then teams will have to adapt and find new ways to use him. But I definitely expect teams to play him in this first split.
Yeah.
And of course, in this game, seeing anything for the first time in an official is really difficult. Like I imagine teams will win quite a bit with Gekko when they bring him out because it's so difficult to adapt on the fly very quickly. But overall, I don't think he's meta breaking. I don't think he's like Chamber 2 or anything like that. I think he actually slots in quite nicely into that like that initiator role on some maps.
Yeah, so sort of a secondary initiator pick on some maps. You think you would have him as? What other initiator do you think would be like a decent pairing?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, like something like a Sova, like a revealer, and then you can basically put him in place of that like Sky or KO. Or I think for like let's say more aggressive teams, take like Loud as an example. I think they could play like Harbour, Viper, Sky, Gekko, and then you either play Jet or Killjoy, and you can play these like super fast, like aggressive, flashing through walls, chaos compositions that some teams really like. Take a team like Paper X, for example, that just live in chaos. I think they'll make really good use out of him. Whereas I think other like maybe more slower structured teams might struggle to get the same impact out of him. So yeah, that's kind of where I see him.
Yeah. So sort of ironing out that place in the meta, which will become a lot more definitive, and we can sort of reflect back on this later on, I suppose. But it's been really interesting to hear some of your thoughts, not just about KOI, but obviously the new agent, where things are headed, this new exciting team of KOI that you have as well, because I really can't wait to see how they're going to perform, because I think in some ways you could call it a surprise package, but at the same time you have that tried, tested quality within this team. And of course, with you on board, what's going to go wrong? It's going to be perfect.
Exactly.
So thoroughly looking forward to it, and of course good luck in the first split.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
No worries. Any final sort of closing thoughts, things you want to round off the video with?
I'll just say thank you to the KOI fans again. A big Somos KOI. I hope you can come and cheer for us in Berlin, watch the streams, and yeah, just give us all that support. It goes a long way. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, and best of luck.